Greetings, parasite ecologists, and welcome back to our discussion of parasite adaptations. In the last video, we asked about trade-offs and the idea of the Darwinian demon. Do parasites really meet the definition? Well, it turns out that unlike Darwinian demons, parasites do in fact have some trade-offs in their life history. It's just that they have different trade-offs than the ones that we're used to thinking about. And to think about how those trade-offs work, let's just consider for a moment a rabbit and a flea that can only infect this one species of rabbit. Now, imagine this host rabbit for a moment. The problem that the rabbit faces is that it needs to find exactly the right kind of tree to dig its burrow underneath. So it has to run around the forest until it finds that tree. And then finally, when it finds the tree, it needs to settle down and dig its burrow. Now imagine you're a flea looking for a rabbit to infect. You're highly host-specific, no other species of rabbit will do. And now it's not just that you need to run around the forest looking for the right habitat, because the right tree without the right rabbit underneath it doesn't do you any good. You don't just need to find the right habitat, you also need to find the right host within the right habitat. And so that makes the search for the appropriate place to settle down and live your life a lot more complicated than it is for the rabbit host. It's not a perfect world for parasites because their interaction with the environment creates some really novel life history constraints. It's just harder for parasites to find the right habitat and to disperse to that habitat. Just as it's hard for a rabbit flea to find the appropriate rabbit to infect, think about, for example, the parasite of a barnacle. A barnacle just needs to find the right kind of rock to settle down on. Pretty simple. A parasite of that barnacle needs to not only find the right kind of rock, but the right kind of rock with the right kind of barnacle on it. Imagine swirling around the ocean, being washed in on the tide, and needing to hit such a teeny tiny target. It's a lot more complicated to find the right habitat when you're a parasite than when you're a free-living species. There's one other special constraint that parasites face that the rest of us don't. I'm sure at some point in your life you've been outside in weather that you would describe as hostile. Like maybe you've gone for a walk and you've come back at the end of the day and just been like, wow, that was a bad idea. Maybe it was pelting hail or freezing cold or boiling hot. The environment was hostile. You barely made it out alive. Now for parasites, the environment isn't just hostile generically. It is actively trying to kill them. Because for parasites, the environment isn't outdoors. Their environment is inside or on the host. Maybe the host is a bird trying to pick off ectoparasites and crush them with its beak. Or maybe the host is a human using his immune system to search and destroy an invading worm. It's not just that parasites are experiencing environmental conditions that are unsuitable. They're experiencing an environment that is actively, purposefully trying to kill them. And so parasites, they are dealing with a perpetually hostile environment. The trade-offs that they face are just really different from the trade-offs that free-living species face. Yes, they're bathed in perfect food, but there is a very low likelihood of them finding the right habitat to live in, and once they get there, that habitat is purposefully trying to kill them. So parasites are not quite Darwinian demons. But there is another special thing about being a parasite that we should talk about. Parasites vary in their host specificity. If a parasite has narrow or high host specificity, that means that it can use only one or a few host species. Maybe it only uses one particular host species and it cannot infect any other host species. If a parasite has broad or low host specificity, it can infect many different host species. And parasites run the gamut. Some are really good at getting along in lots of different hosts. Think about the rabies virus, really, really good at infecting basically any species of mammal that you want to throw at it. But then there are other parasites, like, for example, the virus that causes the common cold. It infects just humans and no other species. Now, there are many things that determine the host spectrum of a parasite, or the suite of host species that it can infect. Physiological host specificity is genetic or immunological or nutritional or anatomical. It's about the compatibility of the host and the parasite, given that they're able to find one another. Some hosts are just unsuitable for a particular parasite, and some hosts are great for that parasite. And that's what physiological host specificity is about. But then there's also ecological host specificity, and this kind of specificity is environmental. This means that if, in the laboratory, you brought the host and parasite together, the parasite would be capable of infecting that host, but they just never intersect with one another out in nature. As a result, the ecological host specificity isn't there because they're never going to encounter one another in real life. Now, there's a really nice way of thinking about this that is shown in a book by Claude Combs that I really encourage you to read if you're interested in delving a little bit deeper. The book is called Parasitism: The Ecology and Evolution of Intimate Interactions. Combs came up with this really great way of showing how the host spectrum of parasites gets determined. He depicts it as two filters that can either be opened or closed. Think about the kinds of filters that you might get inside a camera, the diaphragm that either opens to let more light in or closes to keep the light out. Combs argues that there are two filters, the encounter filter and the compatibility filter. Parasites are, through natural selection, always pushing to open the filters, let more light in, let more infection in. Hosts, through natural selection, are always trying to close those filters, keep light out, keep infection out. Now, on the outer ring is the encounter filter, and that's whether or not the host and the parasite can encounter one another in nature. There are two components to this. The first is biodiversity. If these two species, the host and parasite, don't live in the same ecosystem, that encounter filter is closed, and the host-parasite relationship can't exist. The second component of the encounter filter is behavior, meaning maybe they exist, host and parasite, in the same ecosystem, but the host isn't doing whatever it needs to do to actually intersect with the parasite in that ecosystem. Like, maybe the parasite is foodborne, but the host doesn't eat whatever food in which the parasite occurs. As a result, the behavioral encounter filter is closed, and the host-parasite relationship can't exist. But if both of those components of the encounter filter, biodiversity and behavior, are open, then you can get to the compatibility filter, and that's where physiological host specificity comes in. Either the host is a good resource for the parasite or not. If it is a good resource, the parasite can infect. If it's not, the parasite can't. And then maybe the parasite can infect, but then the host can kill that parasite using its immunological defenses. If that defense mechanism is perfect, then the compatibility filter is closed. If it's imperfect, then it's open. And if all four of these different filters are open, then we can have a host-parasite relationship. Remember, this is dynamic. Through evolution, the parasite is always trying to open these filters, and the host is always trying to close them. Hosts and parasites are locked in this never-ending struggle where the host wants to eradicate the parasite and the parasite wants to infect as many hosts as possible. And in this way, parasites become ever better at living the life parasitic. I'll see you in the next video.